Mark, thanks for coming. Really
Pleasure.
appreciate it. You kind of got a message off me just out of the blue saying, would you come on my podcast? And literally it was like, yeah. So really, really appreciate you coming on. First of all, just introduction really of who you are. Just give us a bit of background of your journey into construction, into education. And just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, Mark Wilson, Chief Exec of the Wellspring Academy Trust. Been Chief Exec at Wellspring since 2014, so done a 10-year stint thus far in role. 25 years plus in education through the kind of standard route, as it were, teacher, deputy, head, and so on. So yeah, that's kind of a potted history.
Yeah. And you're at Wellspring Academy now?
Yep.
Academy Trust, is it?
Wellspring Academy Trust, yeah. So we're currently 33 schools across Yorkshire and Greater Lincolnshire. Began with one school back in 2014, so it's been quite a journey over the 10 years. Mix of primary schools, secondary, special schools, and alternative provisions. So right across the age ranges and sectors, and pretty diverse and interesting stuff. In that time, we've built 8 new schools as part of our program. We've got another 5 new schools through the free school program in Train, and 2 more. 3 more rebuilds of existing schools. So we'll have brought certainly a couple of £100 million worth of investment into our region by the time we've completed that. So that's that's something we're very proud of, and obviously that's that's jobs, and that's companies supported over this time and so on, and communities helped. So that's kind of the mission really.
Yeah, some journey. You were there at one. You were there at one school.
Yeah.
That's amazing. In 10 years, well, that's a no mean feat, is it? Really, 33 schools.
I think it's been. It's a testament to a brilliant team of people, basically. That's kind of what's happened. My plan's always been a very simple one. You get great people around you and great things happen. And kind of that's the way it's gone. We'll see what happens next. We're in a new political era now, and I think things are beginning to change a little bit in terms of viewpoint of central government. So, the journey has always been quite a spiky one. As secretaries of state have changed in education. I'm sure you're well aware there's been about a dozen secretaries of state of education during the 14 years of the Conservative administration. So there wasn't kind of a single clear narrative during that time. I'm hoping we'll get a bit more stability and the chance to thrive, really. There's been lots of hard work done, but kind of it's always felt as though we're fighting a little bit. I'm hoping we get some time to really flourish.
Yeah. Fair play. No, it's good. With your journey, then, just you were saying that you obviously started back. How many 20 odd years was it in education?
Yeah. So 1995, I actually started in education.
As a teacher?
Best part of 30 years.
What subject were you in?
I was a primary teacher.
Oh, right, okay.
So did a bit of everything. And, I loved teaching, and, loved primary teaching. Kids are great, And
now you're in the business world of it.
Yeah, I suppose so. The things kind of top level. It's like 80 million revenue annually, and 200 odd million quid's worth of assets, and and all of these types of things. But kind of we still keep the focus on the front end.
Yeah.
As much as we can.
Yeah.
What's happening day to day in classrooms.
That's good to see. How much you know about Wellspring? If you, I'll be honest, I had a quick look after the.
I'll be honest. No, I'm quite. No, I like to come sort of quite open-minded on learning.
Yeah.
The culture and the ethos, really. So I haven't done a lot. Obviously, the main sites, but it's quite a nice spread, I guess, from Yorkshire through to north and northeast Lincolnshire.
Yeah.
That sort of corridor, if you like, really.
Yeah, we go all the way down to Spalding.
Oh, so Spalding, right, okay.
So we got one of the schools has got a Peterborough postcode, and North Yorkshire we're as far as the north of Harrogate. Westerly we go over to kind of the west of Bradford,
right,
and South Yorkshire to Barnsley. So it's kind of a footprint across all of that. So it's it's a good couple of hundred square miles. So it's a fair region.
I think they're quite a diverse stock of buildings as well. So
yeah.
A lot of heritage as well as
new
build.
There's Victorian buildings in there. One of our schools is in an ex-nuclear bunker built by the town council in the event of a worldwide conflagration. They passed that over as a school at a certain point to new builds. I was in one of our most recent builds yesterday, which is kind of a really leading edge passive house build that's as you'll know is semi off grid. It's the first one that they've done that's got an integrated swimming pool in it that's heated as part of the kind of passive house method. So there's some innovation going on as well in some of that estate. So it's
clever,
interesting,
really.
and it's diverse.
Swimming pools. We were in this school the other week at I can't remember which school it was. They had a swimming pool, and it was costing them more money to run their swimming pool. No one's using it. They were like, just get it filled in.
Yeah.
Like, it's costing us an absolute arm and a leg to keep it running. So that was built. Is that quite a new thing, the swimming pool then, that was put in?
So the school is Trentview College in Scunthorpe, and it's a special school or a special college for young people post 16 to 19, and the pool is a therapy provision,
right? Okay,
as part of the school. Yeah.
But it's nice to think that it's like you say, it's been designed into this passive scheme that's going to be hopefully cost effective to be used by the people it's there for. Because like I said, a lot of the schools, it's like it's a burden more than a pleasure to have a pool these days because of the cost of energy and not having enough lease requirements outside of that to utilise it. So,
so I look on your website and I was passed some amazing information about your trust and work that you're doing. Green spaces, Communicolour, all things like this. Are these all available on your website? The information, or is it stuff that's going on in the background?
Well, I suppose it's more background than foreground.
Okay, so I don't want to lead people to a website and then there's nothing there to be found. But just tell us a little bit more about what you guys are doing at the Trust, because from the information I've got, is you're very, very proactive in biodiversity, sustainability, creating, nice habitats and play areas for, for the community. Just tell us a little bit more about the vision behind that. And
all right,
what the goals are.
Well, you're absolutely right. It's based in a vision. Trusts sign a 125-year lease on the land that they then run an education provision from. So from the outset, my kind of curation at the Trust has been about this 125-year responsibility we've got. So I think we've got to do something with that, and I see that as an opportunity rather than as a problem. Yeah. If we've got a 125-year responsibility, then we can think in 125-year tranches, right? Yeah. So what I'm saying with that is if we're thinking in 125-year tranches, then if we start with the end in mind, we can work back from there. That means that we can intentionally invest in planned enhancement annually and systematically over, well, be it 125 years, be it 100 years, be it 50 years, be it 5 years. But what we're not doing is we're not just thinking, right, well, here's the budget for this year. We've got to throw it all into that. There's a couple of quid spare. We'll maybe do that or we'll do that, which is really how school estate and school infrastructure has been thought of for at least the last 30 years since the move from local authority control to far more autonomous and governor-led school system. The key output of that has been the £11.5 billion deficit we've got in terms of school infrastructure needs. That's money that hasn't been put into where it needed to be, because we know you've got to keep a roof over people's head. You've got to keep places weather tight. But if you're not doing the ongoing investment, the weather's still coming, the weather's still happening, the erosion's still happening, and so on and so on. Hence, you find school stock in the state that we find it in some of our schools. My kind of methodology has been, we ain't going to be those schools. We're going to invest intentionally, purposefully for the long term, and then you can start thinking about actually what are the implications of that. Well, in 50 years' time, Grimsby, where we have a number of schools, is going to have a climate similar to that of Barcelona today, right? Now, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Yeah. But if we're planting trees today, then we need to be thinking about what the climate's going to be like in 50 years' time when those trees are matured. We need to be thinking about our communities and access to green spaces, because there's so much research around human well-being and green spaces. We need to be thinking about the biodiversity of our environments, because it's a massive issue, and we need to be thinking about things like sustainable urban drainage schemes and so on and so on and so on, and and the maximisation of the potential of any and every square centimetre of land that we are responsible for, in terms of access to learning opportunities for kids, and part of learning is playing, right? So, and there are elements like that have been driven out of the school agenda because of kind of narrow standards focus, and, the idea that a school is only effective if standards are at a certain level. It doesn't matter whether the building's falling down, and it doesn't matter whether you've never invested in your infrastructure and estate. Blah blah. That I don't agree with that. I never have, and we've taken a position that said, we'll use the quantum of our resource for maximal purpose, and some of that actually is about infrastructure, environment, and so on, towards a long-term plan. And I referenced to you earlier, Dan, this notion of cathedral thinking. Yeah. It took 632 years to build Cologne Cathedral. That's 632 years working intentionally towards one vision, one plan. Yeah. Notre Dame, 450 years, and so on and so on and so on. You've got to have the end in mind in order to build towards something magnificent. And of course, in the 12th century, whatever it was, when Cologne Cathedral was built, it was the tallest building in the world. And it was a miracle. you know, and that's the ambition.
The idea behind it. I love that. It's so cool, isn't it? Like, it's almost like a legacy.
Yeah.
Almost. Like, you talk about legacy, don't you? Leaving your mark, not just to react. We all can react.
Yeah.
But that's what it kind of, you know, the vibes I'm getting here.
I think legacy is important in leadership, and it's something that I talk to our head teachers and leadership community about. You know, they should be in the business of, you know, leaving a legacy for their communities. Yeah. Part of their legacy as well ought to be to, you know, leave the thing in a better condition than when they found it. You know, there's a quote from the ancient Athenians, which is about, you know, we left this city better than we found it. You know, that was their kind of community focus. You know, to be an agent for enhancement and then passing on to the next generation.
I love that.
Yeah, no,
you're a big believer in that.
I am. Yeah, I think it's exactly what Mark said. So let's leave it better than we found it, no matter how big or small that is. Even if it's just a footprint or something, at least give something a bit beyond what you've taken from that space. And yeah, it's legacy. I do like using the word legacy because it's sort of like, yeah, everyone can have a quick win or there can be a quick sort of turnaround, but actually that long-term vision. I think, did you find that in the education sector that you're not supported from the powers that be in that respect?
No, I mean, you know, that's not been the mindset.
No, the mindset more than supported.
You know, the mindset has been about quick wins or cutting corners to you know, demonstrate standards against one particular metric and forget everything else.
Tick the box, so to speak.
Well, tick a particular box, and you know, and that's success. I see success in a fundamentally different way, and you know, my driver here is that this is public money. You know, this is money that we get from the taxpayer. This is our tax revenue, and thus we ought to be using it to its maximal potential and efficiency. Now, potential and efficiency does require long-term thinking and planning, and then you are purposefully and intentionally working towards a plan. And if that plan is about win-wins, and the win-wins are community engagement, community access, you know, greener spaces and inspiring places, which is the initiative that you'd referenced earlier, Dan, then you know, these things are crucially important. Now, you know, what I do hope through you know, conversations like this and so on is that actually we as a country you know, start to think longer term in terms of our public infrastructure, you know, investment of our, you know, taxpayer resource in the public domain, and you know, and I talk about our environments as public domain. You know, there are so many schools that are like, you know, high security penitentiaries that you know, there's no way in and there's no way out, and there's no way the community are getting anywhere near it. Yeah. You know what is that about in a civilized society? You know, I don't get it. We should be welcoming people in. We should be seeking to inspire people through the quality of the environment around them. We should be seeking to you know, influence how people feel through being in that place. Yeah. So inspiring places, greener spaces, that, you know, that's the big agenda. Part of that is the Communicolor initiative. Yeah. Do you want me to pick up on that one?
Please, yeah, absolutely. Talk about it. It's
okay.
Great.
So Communicolor, again, Communicolor is set within a larger context. So, for 150 years, there have been initiatives at times worldwide around bringing great art into the public domain. After the war in this country, there were initiative for 10, 15 years in many of the London boroughs, bringing art and artists into schools. Great artists, Henry Moore and goodness knows who, creating works of art in schools. Back in the 1880s in France, there were initiative around art in the public realm, and same in Chicago in the 30s and Japan, and there's lots of examples of it. So Communicolor kind of sits within that historical pantheon, and what it's about is bringing large-scale works of public art into our realm. So over time, we've commissioned a whole number of artists to create large-scale kind of murals, works of art for us, both indoor and outdoor. I think the largest of which is probably 7 or 8 meters high and 15 meters wide or something. These are major, impactful pieces, deliberately abstract and deliberately kind of provocative in terms of the use of colour and shape and blah 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 blah, which is all about bringing art to kids and communities, and in particular those kids and those communities that may not have easy access to kind of cultural engagement. Yeah. You come into school, there's a 30-foot work of art in front of you. It's meaningful, it's impactful. It's memorable, and part of this agenda around places and spaces is creating welcoming, safe, calming, pleasing environments for our children, young people, and their families to access. And I set that against, the examples of some schools, let's say, out there, or public buildings, and how they are presented to the people who, their user group, how they're presented, can be very stark, and there are no hooks into some of these places, are there? There are unpleasant places to be and to go. We want to do something the other extreme of that.
Yeah, it's really lovely to hear. Where do you think all this they stem from? You think you came in, CEO, wanted to change things, make things better. Were you inspired by something? Is it different religions or cultures or countries that you've seen something and thought we could do more here?
So I think these things kind of come out of individuals, don't they? I did a trip. I was very, very privileged to be part of a delegation from this country of educators. We were funded to do it. Went to California and spent a week at Apple Park, headquarters of Apple. And what was fascinating to me there was the philosophy and the mantra about intentionality, intentional purpose, and there's still very much a culture of kind of Steve Jobs and Steve Jobs thinking and blah 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 at Apple. I learned something from that. There's a story, isn't there, that goes way back to the foundation of Apple, and something as simple as fonts on computers. Well, fonts on computers only came about because Steve Jobs dropped out of whatever tech course he was doing, and he took a semester course in calligraphy. So he had a personal interest in calligraphy and therefore fonts, and they built fonts into the first Apple devices. That's where fonts come from, on our computers. So some of it, I think, is individual interests and enthusiasms and so on and so on. So, I'd say personally, I've always been drawn to art. I've always had an interest in kind of, creative things. For most of my adult life, I've had some form of interest or other in architecture, and have felt moved and transported by places, buildings, be that religious buildings or I don't know, Pompidou Centre or Lloyd's in the city, or whatever. I got to a position where I was very privileged to be able to kind of use some of this conceptual thinking and make it real in the world, which began as a head teacher in a school. I was a head teacher of a primary school, but part of my agenda was always we'd sink 100 grand, 150 grand, whatever it was, in the building every year. Whether you could see the output of any of it or not, because it's about ongoing investments over the course of my tenure there. There's £1 million plus came out of revenue into the building on top of whatever capital allocation, and hopefully did the thing that the Athenians sought to do, which was to leave this city better than when they found it. And and that's just been a mantra and a methodology that's continued. And again, I have the privilege of working at a greater scale now, and thus that thinking hopefully is benefiting schools and communities across our estate.
Do you know what's interesting about this? I'll ask you a question here. I think it's a great question for you from your building surveying side. Mm-hmm. Like everything like Mark spoke about there, about that vision, that bigger picture. As as a surveying practice, when a call comes in sick and you come look at the roof or the wall, I think what's really important is understanding the backstory of what it means to schools, because sometimes you can get so kind of blindsided by they just want a roof survey, but actually there's a story there that if you can bring in value that helps with the bigger picture, that just creates this better bond, doesn't it?
I think you've got to be that holistic approach. I think, Mark, you're probably in the fewer that look at it that way, because it is often the case that we're dealing with it needs doing because it needs doing, not of proactively thinking, how can we better this? What's the options to do that? So it is nice to hear. I could just talking in initial stages. It's the art, the love of art and the architecture just draws through. It's actually made me feel a little bit like I don't know enough. All these sort of references to place. I think that's I should know more about that. But I think it's what path you take, isn't it? Sometimes it's having that interest, and it's refreshing to see it being sort of re-engaged into schools and school buildings and things like that. So
I think it's important for precisely that reason, because there's a W.B. Yeats quote, isn't there? Education is the lighting of a fire, not the filling of a pail. Well, there's been far too much filling of pails and not enough lighting of fires. Things like Communicolor, large-scale works of art, say to me, any young person looking at that's the lighting of a fire. I could do that. I could be that. That could be my future. Or a design or a building element. Something interesting in the building is a hook. Why that? Why make that choice? How's that done? Is that mass produced? Is that, so all of these things come into it for me, and what I'm trying to, more than trying, what our teams are doing very well is adding elements of imagination here and there and there and here, which might be architectural features, might be design features, might be artistic features, or I don't know, something on the walls or the carpets or the whatever, that are just little hooks that somewhere, some little imagination at some point will inevitably latch onto. Yeah. Because, we're investing in futures here. And again, I think that's been part of the problem over recent years, a cookie cutter approach, an idea that mass education is one thing, and the masses and the elite have very different experiences. And I do reference schools like Eton in our leadership events to say they've been at this for 250 years. The quality of that environment is 250 years worth of intentional thinking and planning. Right. Okay. We might be in year one, but there's the model. Yeah. Right. There's what we're going to do, and children, young people in Grimsby deserve as rich and as a high quality environment and experience as anybody who goes to Eton. We have to be the catalysts to make that work, and crucially bring our imagination to the table. Stand up for it, and be confident in our use of public funds for maximal benefit.
Yeah. It's easy to paint a wall white, magnolia, beige.
They're all the same, though, aren't they? Every school. Yeah.
But if you step above and put a red wall or a blue wall, it's that striking effect of, well, why has that been done? And it's that sort of. It's letting people ask the questions, all them little.
It absolutely is. It's interesting. We have challenges with contractors around painting walls because there's a thing going on at the moment with precisely with walls, right? Why just beige? Let's do something. So actually, two colours and a kind of an abstract shape across it, half blue, half white, but not a straight line. So and kind of contractors' minds are blown. Yeah. Right. No, it's do a straight line, and but what angle? It don't really don't care. Well, it's harder than you would. It's harder than you would imagine.
The abnormality of that, it just doesn't sit with them, does it? It's sort of like
absolutely, and again, this is part of the agenda. The agenda is, at least in part, a disruptive agenda that actually asks new questions. That shouldn't be rocket science. I mean, my goodness, but just out of and this is the thing with the norm. This norm, it's just become a patterned reality, and thus our kids are on the end of that, everywhere and every time. All schools internally, they look very similar, if not the same. Well, we can do a bit better than that.
Yeah.
An image has popped in mind for me, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of our schools, we put an installation in this summer by the artist Morag Myerscough. Now, Morag is an internationally famous artist. She works worldwide on major kind of installations and things. And, one of our exceptional people made contact with Morag a couple of years ago. We've actually had her into one of the schools, working with groups of kids, creating art. And, the idea was we'd have this Morag installation in the school, like they had at the at Hadrian's Wall last year, or they had at the, the national celebrations in Chile, or, blah, 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 blah. She really is that significant an artist. In the end, Morag's time was challenged, but she invited us down to the launch of the electronic mini, the electric mini, right? The e-mini. Mm-hmm. And Morag had done this kind of this huge installation in Hoxton, where they had the launch. And there's a Morag church in there. There's all sorts of stuff going on. And very generously, she allowed us to kind of claim parts of this installation that have then gone up in this school hall. So the impact of the thing is enormous. The shapes, the colours, it's an amazing thing. Those kids are connected to an internationally famous artist, who they've sat down around a table with and realised she's a normal person. I could be that. I could do that. I could be doing that. This thing is amazing. It's out of the norm of what a school hall looks like. I say it's better than what's going on in most places.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Because my time at school many years ago, it was sort of like a Monet picture that you had to readdress.
No, do you know we had Hunter from Gladiators jumping over us?
Did you?
That was what we had.
Relatable.
That was our inspiration.
So that's a really interesting point. One of the big things I've done with our estates and capital team is worked with them about seeing the world through a child's eyes. The key users of our schools are our children, young people. So it doesn't matter really whether you as our head of estates planning or whatever the role might be, is into Danish minimalism, right?
Yeah.
A 7-year-old isn't.
No, exactly.
Right? So what do we want the environment to look like that excites a 7-year-old? It's something very different. So we've got to park our adult sensibilities and reset to the eyes of the actual beholder and user, and that we're doing that incredibly well, I think, through all aspects. I mean, I think of toilets. One of the things I've always said is, toilets in our schools have to be the Harvey Nichols of school bogs. I'm bothered about the school bogs, right? Because actually that is an important part of a child's experience of school. And I've known so many kids over so long who, using the toilets in school was something they would not do, right? And and they're going home bursting or because they won't use the toilets. Well, why is that? And let's actually see it through a child's eyes, and let's redesign them fundamentally, and no, we're not buying off plan, because that's the problem, right? So we're going to have to do these things bespoke, and they're going to meet kids' needs, and so that that's part of the thinking as well.
I wish I'd gone to one of Mark's schools.
I want to leave. Would you?
I'm looking. Do you know we did? It's just made me think. I do a lot of talks into schools about construction. 7, 8, 9-year-olds, and there was a one called dream, believe, achieve. And it was like 15-minute session talking about construction. I'm thinking, what am I going to talk to 7-year-olds about? Anyway, what we did is, and it worked really well, we went in 2 minutes on construction, but then what I did is I got them to design their own school. And we had chocolate fountains, we had one of them had an airport and a space station, and you should see them all come to life. And ultimately what we were doing within that 15-minute period was it was a hook of, I can be an architect. And that got me. You don't realise how powerful that 15 minutes was. And by the end of it, they're all putting their hands up, wanting to tell me what they've built. And one had a PlayStation room, and a slide off the top into the swimming pool. And so I get it. I totally get it. And it's really refreshing to see and hear your kind of methods. And you should kind of have like a group where, I don't know if you have that, but share with other CEOs of your methods, because I'm guessing not every CEO is going to be in that position. Some are there to just have the curriculum, make sure it's right, and move on. So it's lovely to see.
I've got a bit of a question for you. What you're not to put you on the spot, but when it comes to like Ofsted and sort of assessments, do you feel that they actually what's the word? Do they look at that enough when trying to assess, and should they more?
So, I mean, I think Ofsted has been a big part of the problem, in that we have come to see school effectiveness wholly through the lens of Ofsted.
Yes.
And what Ofsted look at is what they shine the light on is actually a pinprick of what makes a school an effective school. I've led schools that Ofsted say are outstanding, that are in massive debt, the building's falling down, and the quality of teaching is dreadful, right? But it just so happens that they're in very affluent areas, and the kids learn despite everything that's going on around them, right? That ain't an outstanding school. That's a totally broken school. There's no interest in health and safety, or maintenance regimes, or actually 99% of what keeps a school open. So how can that define what a good school is? It doesn't. It talks about a very, very narrow thing. But the obsession has become Ofsted. Now, I'm all for an inspection regime that evaluates all aspects of things that make a school effective, because that's what they should be doing. And that's what head teachers should be held to account for. We're totally skewed right now. And thus, this £11.5 billion infrastructure gap that we've got is at least partly powered by head teachers' obsession with all of the resource at the front line in classrooms. And we need more bodies, because standards. Your roof's falling in. The wind's blasting through the windows, and you've not had your boiler serviced for 11 years.
There we go. That is it. That was a great question, to be fair. And we need to get someone on here from the Ofsted and say,
I think they'll agree. How could they deny that? They'll protect their position, but
look at
surely
all the good stuff you're doing, and it ultimately goes.
They're not interested, and thus, there is a choice, and there's a position to take in the world, isn't there? And my position is we're public servants. This is taxpayers' money. This is about now and the future, and thus, this is what we do now. And in all of that, we've not fallen foul of Ofsted. We had 30 odd inspections, and all bar 2 of them have been good and outstanding, and the other 2 just fell the wrong side of good. And the number of schools we've taken on from inadequate and in massive financial problems with buildings falling down and blah blah blah, and made them good and outstanding schools and in a healthy financial position, and done all of this other stuff as well. It proves that it proves what can be done. and as a model for effective use of public resource in terms of taxpayer money, I can sleep nights thinking,
well spent.
We've done all right. We're doing a good job for the people we serve.
It's a great benchmark, isn't it? It does seem to come across. It's very black and white when it comes to that marking process. Yeah. And the world isn't black and white, is it? There's lots of different things that the end user, and as the pupils, benefit from and actually think highly of outside of those standards.
Correct. And not all of it is measurable. And that's been, that's another issue with public sector and public service. As money gone in, we've got to measure the impact, we've got to measure the impact. Well, those families who, kind of own Kensington and Chelsea, let's say, and or live there, nobody's been measuring the impact of their use of resource for the last 1,000 years. Kensington and Chelsea's doing all right? So, sometimes we've got to actually put the money in and let it do its thing. And you can't measure all. A lot of what I've spoken about today actually are intangibles. How do we know the impact on an individual of greener spaces and inspiring places? We don't. Will we ever have a metric to measure it? Probably not. How do I feel instinctually about that? Instinctually, I feel it's a humanist agenda that's that can only benefit people, because common sense tells me that.
Yeah.
And kind of I'm prepared to hold that as my position.
Yeah,
I love that. I love the. I do. You're not going against the system, but going with your beliefs. But look, Matt, I think we're going to come to the final part. Really, now is just a bit of advice for anyone that's stepping into a CEO position or anyone that's on their CEO journey. What advice would you give to them?
I think clarify what you're about, and then stick to what you're about. Expect some challenges to it, but hold to what your position is.
Yeah, perfect. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah,
cheers.
Thank you both.